In just a minute here. Thank you all for being here with us today. Super excited. I can see a lot of friendly faces, and please feel free to put any questions you have in the chat, and I will do my best to get to them after going through my deck. Okay, so again, thank you for joining. And I'm so grateful to be spending time with you to talk about why WFH, formerly known as work from home, desperately needs a rebrand. But before we begin, I would like all of us to take one deep, intentionally calming breath. Okay, that's better. So here's a bit of background on me. My name is Erin Gallagher, and I am one of the founding partners of Have Her Back Consulting. My two female founding partners, Carolyn Detman and Pamela Culpepper, and I created Have Her Back to work with brave companies to tackle gender equity and diversity differently. And when we left our comfortable corporate jobs to launch this business 6 months ago, there is no way we could have predicted that a global pandemic would land squarely in the middle of our first year of business. I would venture to guess that none of you saw this as your kickstart to the new decade either. So how are we going to deal with it? How do we take care of ourselves, our companies, our families, and our communities during this time? How do we let go of what working from home meant just a few months ago? Because it's gone. Now, WFH, in my opinion, means working from here, meeting ourselves and each other where we are in all the ways that we are coping, physically, emotionally, psychologically, physiologically. Sometimes I break out in hives when I'm stressed, which is just a little fun fact about me. So let's define it. What does working from here mean for me? It means that I am not working from my city of Chicago, but instead I'm working at my mom's house in Michigan with my mom, my 18-month-old Charlie, my almost 4-year-old William, my working husband Brian, and our golden retriever Lincoln. Right now, my mom is actually driving my 2 children around in our car so that they don't interrupt this virtual session. That is my current reality. So what I'd love for you to do is think about this question for yourselves. What does working from here mean for you? And I'm not just talking about the working professional aspect of it, but the physical, emotional, psychological, physiological aspect. And it's a really big question. So I want you to think about it and we'll come back to it. But in the meantime, I'm going to outline 5 ways to work from here during this historically difficult time. And as I said at the beginning, at the end of the presentation, I'd love to save some time for Q&A. So if you have any questions while this is going on, type them in the chat or we can open it up to discuss at the end. Okay, so number 1, acknowledge where you are. There are 7 stages of grief. And I truly believe that we are all experiencing grief right now. Grief at the loss of what we thought our world was going to be before the pandemic. Grief at the loss of business, of employment, of planned vacations, of monumental life events. On the lightest level, this might include the loss of access to the services of your beloved colorist, like I'm experiencing right now, and it is not getting better with each day. But on the heaviest level, this might include the loss of a family member or a friend. So these are all losses, and they are all different, and they're personal to each of us. So where are you on this linear path? If you look here, right now, I feel like I'm probably in the testing stage, but I have been in every one of these phases, and I've been in them multiple times. You may experience the stages of grief in any order, over any period of time, and they can be repeated any number of times. You may feel sad at the beginning and then move to anger and then return to sadness, sometimes all in one day, sometimes all in one conversation. So take your time to grieve. Allow yourself to do it in your own unique way. I think I'm pretty good at keeping it together in front of my kids, but that doesn't mean that I never lose my cool or raise my voice or just plain freak out. But what I rarely let them see is me experience fear or sadness because I feel like it's my responsibility to present a feeling of calm. And that characteristic of mine, and if any of you have that same characteristic, it's particularly difficult to maintain during a continuously stressful time when you're together all the time, especially if you don't have a release valve. Have you seen the way a pressure cooker operates? If you don't release that steam, that pressure, at some point, the whole thing can blow. So find ways to release your stress and your sadness during this time. Whether it's listening to a podcast or working out on your Peloton or taking a brisk walk by yourself or putting on a 10-minute guided meditation while you hide from your family in the bathroom or drinking half a bottle of sparkling rosé. Okay, fine, a full bottle of sparkling rosé and bawling your eyes out while watching the Joy Luck Club, which I did no less than 2 nights ago, which is a beautiful film if you haven't seen it. Find a release that works for you, okay? And schedule it into your calendar like your life depends on it. And then do it because it does. Number 2, meet others where they are. Taking care of yourself is mission critical. It's job 1. You cannot pour from an empty cup. But this isn't just about us individually. Even if you're at home alone during this quarantine, you are still interacting with others virtually and from a safe social distance. So how do we meet others where they are? First, ask them how they're doing. Everyone is experiencing this differently. If you're a parent and you're trapped with your children, and I use the word trapped lovingly, you are desperately missing silence and space. If you're an extrovert and quarantining alone, you're dealing with a different kind of challenge, one where you are no longer being fed by the energy that human interaction gives you. And if you're an introvert and every interaction is now a Zoom video call, I'm sorry. And I respect that your camera is off during this call, okay? You do you. So you and those you know may not fit into any of these categories or may fit into more than one. Whatever the case may be, ask those in your life where they are and then really try to meet them there. Continuing to find ways to create separate togetherness will sustain us long after this quarantine has passed. Number 3, rewrite your business plan. Okay, this one sucks, but it's necessary. The spirit of what your company is doing, your mission, that should never change. But how you're doing it, when you're doing it, and why your current and future clients should care, that must change. Operating with a business as usual mentality right now is not a thing. And failing to acknowledge the state of the world we're in and how it impacts your business and your offering or your product is a terrible case of ignoring the elephant in the room. I mean, let's be real. The elephant sat on planet Earth, okay? Let's show some respect. The moment you let go of the way you were working before the pandemic will be incredibly freeing. Trying to recruit the same way, prospect the same way, or counsel or consult the same way, it will only lead to frustration, fatigue, and failure. This is a forced reset that we must embrace. And in order to survive, we really do have to embrace it. Okay, so stop doing what's not working, even if it worked before, and start trying new things. You're gonna fail, but you're gonna learn. And then you'll get back up and you'll do it again until you succeed. Number 4, do less. Focus on quality over quantity. Okay, I'm an English major, but I've developed a very scientific equation to use in planning your day with a sample size of n equals 1. This is based on working remotely with 2 children under the age of 4, and it may or may not apply to your life, but hey, math is math, okay? So here it is. Take what you would normally do on a non-COVID-19 quarantine day and divide it by 2. This number represents your productive hours, okay? So for example, if you would normally work an 8-hour day, which let's be real is a joke for most of us, you will now get a solid 4 hours of productive work in if you're lucky, okay? And this is like on the best possible day because some of these days it has been 1 hour for me. Now take that number and multiply it by 3. This is the unproductive multiplier. Okay, so now your equation equals the number of hours it will actually take you to do that work In this example, that number equals 12. 12 hours of inefficient productivity, also known as way the F longer than you wanted it to be. Okay, so in conclusion, 4 hours of solid work will actually take you 12 hours to complete. Great. This is our new reality. Let's accept it. Let's adjust our expectations of ourselves and others accordingly. Do less. You are not going to write that book you've always wanted to write during this time. You may not even read that book you've always wanted to read during this time. This is not a vacation with your family. This is not a retreat by yourself. This is not a sabbatical to find your inner voice or an inspirational trip to build your business. This is sheltering in place, lockdown quarantine at home during a global pandemic crisis. What the? None of us signed up for this. Only some of us prepared for this, and that was not me. But all of us must navigate it, which leads me to my fifth and final step in working from here. 5, move from guilt to grace. I try to be a good friend, spouse, partner, coworker, and I try to lift people up, encourage them when they're struggling. I am terrible at doing this for myself. If I worked for me in the way that I talk to me in my head, I would quit. So try to give yourself the grace that you so freely extend to others. Your rules will need flexibility. Your routine will need adjusting. Your kids will test your limits, and your limits will expand. Meet yourself where you are and go from there, one day at a time. Okay, so to recap, this is how to work from here. First, acknowledge where you are. Second, meet others where they are. Third, rewrite your business plan. 4, do less, focusing on quality over quantity. And 5, move from guilt to grace. In conclusion, I'd like to eloquently state what I know all of us are thinking. This quarantine sucks. Okay, but even so, here we are. And honestly, this may be the virtual reality training in empathy that our planet has desperately needed. I don't know what the world is going to look like going forward, but I don't want to go back to the way that it was. Let's use this once in a lifetime chance to remake our society and build a better future for us all. It won't be easy. It won't happen quickly. It won't come without hardship or pain or wine, but it's there for us. So that's that. And now I would love to check out the chat and see if we have any questions that I can answer. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we have Danielle Nelson, who is my best friend from 7th grade. I work in an office of 8 people. I'm the only one with young kids. I have one colleague with kids, both of whom are grown and out of the house. My coworkers don't get it. I have to work from the bathroom to get a quiet space for a conference call. Advice, ? Oh, Danielle, I think so many of us are feeling this. I think that what is going to happen coming out of COVID and COVID-19 quarantine, and honestly what needs to start happening immediately, and this is up to companies to lead the charge, is that the caregiver bias that so many of us experience on the outside is now front and center. I think that it's sort of this, it's why I said this is kind of like a virtual diversity and inclusion training and empathy, where anyone that used to be able to be frustrated in their minds about a mother that had to leave to go deal with their kids, or had a certain number of hours she could work, or couldn't get back online because she had a kid's soccer practice to go to, they're now experiencing it themselves on the front lines firsthand. And so they're not going to be able to ignore what that reality is when we go back to our offices. So in the meantime, Danielle, my advice to you would be to just honestly tell people where you are at the beginning of a conversation. I think oftentimes when you're getting on a work call, say to them, I'm in the bathroom right now hiding from my kids. Guess what? The lock is easily pickable, so they will bust in at some point. Let's do our best. And if they arrive, I may have to go. And anyone that has a heart is going to understand that. So just continue to talk about where you are so that they can understand that that's where they need to meet you. Okay. Andrea Betts, who is a sorority sister of mine, that now works at my former PR agency. Look how the world is coming full circle. She gave some advice to Danielle saying, I honestly just keep my kid in the picture. Coworkers might not get it, but I think continually reinforcing what my reality looks like versus hiding it, if I can find the space for the call, helps. It's true. I really do think that just, there's something to be said about the armor that we go into the office with, where we get there and no one knows what the morning looked like for us, right? We show up. Now, granted, I'm wearing a dress for the first time in COVID-19 quarantine. I normally don't look like this, but I'm doing this for y'all. And I'm wearing my Rebecca Minkoff because it's the Female Founder Collective. But when you actually show up how you are, it gives a completely different picture. So if I show up like this to the office and no one knows that in the morning my kids were climbing all over me and it was a total S show and I'm really stressed about it, then I get to present as a completely put together person and no one knows what's happening behind the scenes. Now it's actually happening on screen. And so I really, again, I think that this is a chance for so many of us that juggle too many things and struggle with it to show it to other people. Let the kids come into the picture. It's really important that people understand that interruption that they're experiencing on the other side of that screen for a few minutes is actually what our reality in life is like right now, more than ever. But also outside of the quarantine, that's what life with kids is. Even if your kids aren't sitting with you, they're on your mind and you're responsible for them. And you have to drop things at a moment's notice if they need your help. So we really are just all seeing front and center what all of the pieces of our life that we normally manage behind the scenes look like. Okay. I love Nikki Morris, who's on the call, and looking at your face during the presentation just like gave me joy. And she loves the equation, which I think this is a good equation that I came up with. And again, I am not a mathematician. And I also think that I underestimated a little bit just to not scare people. I think that the number is actually much lower in terms of the productive hours per day. It depends on kind of, if you have children and you have to be a parent, a working mother, and a teacher, okay, I'm sorry, but I only signed up for, I guess I signed up for 2 of those. But what I didn't sign up for was being a stay-at-home mom, which is an incredible job that I am not equipped to do, okay? So now I'm a stay-at-home mom, a career mother, and a teacher. And there's this phrase that says, I can't be in 3 places at once. Yeah, well, guess what? I can't be 3 people in one place either. So you do have to pick. You have to say, right now, this is who I am, and those other 2 things fall away, and they aren't going to be as successful today. So in this hour time period, I'm talking to you all. I'm being the career mother. My kids are in a car driving around the block because they can't be here for this, and I can't be there for them. That isn't always possible. And so oftentimes they are interrupting. So again, it's sort of like a pick one, pick which one you're going to be for that hour, do it well as best as you can, and let the other 2 fall away. And I think that that's all we can honestly do to survive this right now. Okay, Asia Star Day, my beautiful friend who is over in Italy right now. How do I deal with close friends, other freelancers asking for leads? It's overwhelming because my first instinct is to do whatever I can to help, but I just can't. I'm having a hard time uplifting others when I'm experiencing low motivation to help myself. Asia, that's a really good point. And again, it goes back to the first point that I laid out there, which is to take care of yourself. So you are not going to be able to be that for them. When you're at a different point in the 7 stages of grief, which is the feeling more motivated and like you've got it together and trying to find solutions, that may be the day that you can help them with a lead. But if you're in one of those other phases, you can't. So I think that we've got to give ourselves grace during this time. We are experiencing this differently. We're also experiencing it differently each day. I absolutely had a day a week and a half ago where I stayed in bed until 11 o'clock and I just said, I can't do it. I asked my mom and my husband to sort of take the kids, and I just really felt like I'm not going to be able to do this. I can't like figure out how to keep this business going and how to make my kids happy and be stuck in my mom's house. And I went for a walk and I called a friend and I walked for an hour outside by myself, and I just got a little more clear-headed. But I let myself have that moment. I didn't wake up in the morning and say, pull it together. You've got to be all of these things today. I let myself have that day where it was a full-on depressive day that had very low productivity. But if I didn't let myself go through it, I probably wouldn't have been able to move forward to what was next, which was starting to come out of it, find solutions, and feel like we can do this together. Ask for help in all of the ways that you can. I realize that my position right now is I am very lucky. I'm lucky to have a job that is remote. I'm lucky to still have a job. I'm lucky to be safe in a house and have another person helping with children, my spouse and my mother. So there are a lot of things that I have for me right now, and even still it's hard. So the spectrum here on challenges for people is vast. It doesn't take away from what you're experiencing. And so feel that, talk to the people that are close to you that can help you through it, and let yourself feel things. Let yourself say, today isn't my day. And so today is the day that I'm just going to get through it. I'm not going to do a lot, and I'm not going to expect a lot. Okay. Let's see. Are there any more questions that anyone has? If you don't, then I think we might be finished. So thank you all for having me here today. It was wonderful spending time with you. And I really do encourage you to give yourself grace, and to turn to those people that care about you. And there are a lot of them on a call like this and in this community and in so many of the communities around you. I will share this presentation with the Female Founder Collective, and we can push it out. And then also we've recorded this, so we'll share that out as well in case there's anyone else in your life that you feel could use hearing something like this and they weren't able to be on the call. But reach out to me. My handles are at Erin Gallagher, and I would love to talk to any of you about how you're doing. So have a great day, everyone.